Hey, how's it going everyone? Miguel Quiles here. In today's video, I want to show you guys how you could take your portraits and give them a fall, kind of an autumn vibe. So I'm going to show you how I took this portrait from here to here using a combination of different programs, using Photoshop, using alien skin exposure. And then I'll show you kind of maybe a little bit of a different way to be able to do it using Capture One on its own. So before we get started with the tutorial, I want to announce that I'm going to be giving away a brand new Sony a6500. If you want the opportunity to be able to win, check out the description for this video. There's going to be a link and you can click on that and hopefully be able to enter. It's completely free. Yeah, super excited. And hopefully over the next few months, I'll be able to do some more giveaways. But this is going to be the first of many, and hopefully someone will get to enjoy this new camera. So anyway, without further ado, let's get started with the retouch. Now, I'm going to show you guys here in Capture One. This is the photo as it was shot straight out of the camera with no adjustments. Just to show you guys, I'll hit reset here. Took a bunch of different photos here, but this is going to be the one that we're working on. And this was shot with the Sony a7 II. And this was an older photo. I think I took this back at the end of, it was around fall 2016. This was actually an episode of the breakdown for Adorama TV. So if you're interested in finding out how I took this image, you definitely want to head over there to Adorama TV, check out the video. You'll see how I shot this. I'll link that in the description for this video as well if you want to take a look at it. But in this video, we're going to cover how we got the fall look in post-production, because a lot of people were asking me in the comment section for that video, Miguel, how did you do it? How did you get those colors? Mine don't look like that. So I'm going to show you. It's actually fairly simple. It's pretty easy. I think you guys will be able to follow along with this tutorial. But shot this with the A7 Mark II. It was with the Mitacon f/0.95 lens, which is why you're not seeing it there. It's a manual lens, so it doesn't tell you what the aperture settings were. But again, you can see it in the video. Shutter speed was 1/1250 and ISO was at 100. So let's dig into this photo here in Photoshop. And I'll show you guys, I basically just opened the raw file directly from Capture One, brought it over here to Photoshop to begin this process. And straight away, what I ended up doing, I'm going to turn on these layers one by one and kind of talk to you about, what I did for each layer. So the first layer that I applied, you notice straight away that we pretty much have the fall look that we were going for. And this is a preset that I added in Alien Skin Exposure X2 at the time, which right now, if you go to their website, which again, I'll link that in the description as well, you can see, I think they're up to X3 or X4 right now. Just check out the link and you'll see what the latest version is. But I used a preset that's called Color Photo, and I'll show you guys basically what that looks like. So we'll go back to our original photo, and if you have Alien Skin Exposure, you can go to Filter, Alien Skin, and Alien Skin Exposure X2. We'll wait for that to start up. All right, and I'm going to reset this. Okay, so that preset is actually found here in Color Films Aged. So here are all the different presets that you can add. This is the Color Photo preset. And you can see with one click that we pretty much have the fall colors that we're looking for. However, the skin doesn't look great, right? Everything else looks good. The hair looks good. Background looks great. But unfortunately, the skin here is, kind of suffering here. It doesn't look great with this color. And so I'm going to cancel out from this. I just want to show you where I found this preset. I'll show you what I did to it. So when I applied that preset, obviously you see the skin here doesn't look the same. If you kind of go back and forth between that layer, you notice that the skin has not been affected by this preset. And the reason for that is that I applied what's called a layer mask. And it's very, very simple to do. Once you apply that preset to the image, basically what you'll end up doing is this little icon down here. If you add a vector mask, basically what it'll do is it'll add a mask to this particular layer, and then with your brush tool, you could just brush out the area that you don't want to be affected by the preset. So if I hold down, and I'm on a PC, so if I alt click on this mask, you can see that the white area is where the preset was applied to the image. The black part basically is what was excluded from that. So you could see that I basically just excluded all of her skin tone, pretty much all the way down to her shirt, because I didn't want it to affect that. So there it is. So really simple. We have kind of the basis for our fall color look that we're going for, but we're not done just yet. There's a little bit more work to do. So that's the first thing. Add the preset to the image, add a layer mask, take off the area via a mask that you don't want to be affected by the preset. Then we're going to go to our skin. So this is our skin layer. Very simple. I basically just took out some of the dark lines that were underneath the eyes. We'll zoom in a little bit closer here so we can see if there's anything else that's being done. Yeah, I mean, we've got a couple of stray hairs here on the top near the forehead. Nothing super major here. A lot of my retouches, when I retouch portraits, I don't do a lot. You know, I try to keep it relatively minimal. And the other thing that you might be surprised to see here is that I'm not using frequency separation. You don't have to use frequency separation for every portrait. Some portraits need it, some portraits don't. This photo of Noel, she's a great model, and so she doesn't really need it in this case. So what I ended up doing was I added a blank layer. So I'll just redo this here so you guys can see. Down here on the bottom right corner, you can add a layer. I'll change the name of this to skin. And then you could use your basic tools for skin retouching. So you could use spot healing brush tool or the healing brush tool, patch tool, whatever it is that floats your boat. You can zoom into the image here. And what you want to make sure is that you'll see it says sample layer. So right now it's set to current layer. If I begin retouching on this blank layer and I choose current layer, nothing is going to happen, right? So if I sample this and I start brushing, nothing's going to happen, and you're going to be like, Miguel, you don't know what you're doing. This doesn't work. But it does work. Here's how you do it. So instead of having this say current layer, you're going to either do current and below, or you're going to do all layers. Okay, so in this case, we're pretending like this stuff hasn't been done up here. So you could do either or. You could do all layers, or you can do current and below. But I'm going to change it to all layers. And now if I sample and I brush over these areas, you'll notice that these changes are now taking place. So all I'm doing is sampling a piece of skin that is near the area that I want to change, and just really simply, very easily, just brushing over the areas that I want to modify. So this is what I did on this particular layer. It was pretty easy. I mean, this is like basic skin retouching 101. So yeah, so really simple. And I basically just went over the entire image, got rid of all these little stray hairs, different things that I thought might be taking away from the overall image. And yeah, so just like that. Anyway, so I'm going to actually delete this layer because I already did this skin retouch, and that's basically what I did up to that point. So just to show you, that's basically the before and after with just two layers. Got the preset layer and the skin layer. Now the next layer, which I think makes a pretty big difference, I'll turn that one off and on. You could see face looks a little bit different. You've got a little bit of different kind of highlights and shadows happening in the hair. And this is done via dodge and burn. So if you haven't done dodge and burn before, there's a lot of great tutorials about this technique online. Perhaps I'll do a video in the future just showing exactly how this is done. But basically, dodge allows you to lighten certain parts of the image, and burn allows you to darken certain parts of the image. All of it using a brush. And so it's relatively simple to set up these layers. These are actually just curves layers. And so what you could do, I'll show you really quickly how to set it up, and then I'll show you what I did to it. So if you click on curves, you'll create a curves layer here. And what I like to do is I'll take this curves layer, and there's a bunch of ways to set this up. Again, there's a lot of YouTube videos, I want to show you the easy way to do it. What you could do is you can go to your modes here and you could change it to screen. And you'll notice that if you change it to screen, the whole image gets super, super bright. And obviously that's not, that's not what we want to do. So what we're going to do is we'll switch it to screen. And then on a PC, I'm going to hold down Control and hit I. And you're going to see that what it does is we had a white layer or white layer mask, and we switched it over to a black layer. So everything is hidden now underneath this black layer. So if I take, for example, a white brush, and I'm going to put everything at 100%. So opacity 100%, flow at 100%. If I brush over this image, you're going to notice now there's a white line on this black layer mask, and everything that I basically paint white is going to show that bright layer that's underneath. So obviously you don't want to do it the way that I'm showing you right now, because that would look terrible. But what you can do is you could actually do specific adjustments, and you can lower the flow, and you can keep the opacity the same. So what I like to do is have the flow maybe around 3%, and then you could zoom into different parts of the image and resize your brush, and you could basically just brush in these. For example, this is, and we should change the names of these, by the way, so we'll put that as Dodge. You can click again on the mask, and you could start to lighten and darken specific parts of the image. And so again, really, really simple, really kind of straightforward. As you do this, by the way, if you hold down Alt on a PC and click on that mask, you can see where you brushed on that image. So really easily, I could go ahead and all of these like areas that I want to brighten, like the strands of hair, which I tend to do relatively often in my portraits, just kind of brushing over the bright parts that I want to brighten. That's what the dodge layer does. Now I'm going to delete this, and I want to show you guys the layer mask here. This was my actual dodge and burn. This took probably maybe like 10 minutes. Wasn't terribly difficult, but all the areas that you're seeing here, these are areas that I basically dodged, where I brightened different parts of the image. And it actually looks kind of cool when you look at the layer mask. You can see I added some highlights in the eyes, brightened the forehead, the nose, underneath the eyes, above the lip, the actual lip highlight, the chin, added some highlights into the hair. And so I'm going to turn off the burn layer here. So this is the dodge layer by itself, what it's doing. And it's very subtle. You have to really just look at it to see what's happening here. But that dodge layer is basically just selectively brightening these areas. Now I'm going to turn off the dodge layer. We're going to turn on burn, off and on. You can see that there's some parts here, like the eyebrows got a little darker. There's a little patch of hair here and there that I darkened. Didn't do very much. I'll show you guys there. These areas here have been burned, which means that they were darkened. And so setting up this burn layer is very simple as well. It is also a curves layer adjustment. So we'll click on that. And instead of using screen, we're going to use multiply. So if you use multiply, you're going to notice that it gets quite a bit darker. Again, you'll select your layer mask here, hit Control and I on a PC. That will hide this crazy dark adjustment underneath a black mask. You could take a brush of the opposite color in white, and now I can paint over different parts of the image that I want to darken. So relatively easy, really straightforward. And if I hold down Alt and click on that mask, you can see where I made those brush strokes. That's really, really helpful. Once you start to dodge and burn, you could actually retouch an entire portrait using dodge and burn. You could do it by pixel level. It's a really, really powerful tool. I would say that a majority of my work, I try to use dodge and burn over using frequency separation because it gives you a much more natural, clean look. So if you guys want a tutorial on dodge and burn in the future, leave that in the comment section below. Let me know. Perhaps I'll come back and revisit this a little bit more in depth. But for the purposes of this tutorial, hopefully that gives you an idea. This was the mask for the dodge or the brighten layer, and this was the mask for the burn layer. And if I put both of those in a folder here, I call them dodge and burn. So you could see the before and the after. So very subtle. We'll back out here, but just adds this really nice youthful glow to the image. Now, once I've done this, what I typically will do is I will go back into Exposure X2 and I will see if I can add an additional preset just to see if it adds a little, something extra to the image. So what I'll end up doing is I hold down Shift, Control, Alt, and E. That will create a layer that basically takes all of these layers below it and it just merges them into one layer. Now, you have to do this before you go back into exposure, because if you, for example, we'll delete that. Let's say you've taken your dodge and burn, you've put them into a folder, and now you're like, oh, I want to go back into alien skin. Well, if you go into filter, you're going to notice you can't, right? It's grayed out. The only way to be able to do it again is to create that merged layer, Shift, Control, Alt, E. Now, when I go up to filter, alien skin, exposure X2, now I could actually go back into that. So I'm going to delete this layer for the moment, because what I ended up doing was I created that layer, went back into exposure X2, and then I added this preset. This is under slide. It's Agfa Chrome 1000 RS. And so this is the before and after once I added that. Now you'll notice there is no layer mask, so the effect is being applied to the entire image, and I like it. It looks really cool. It's kind of what I was going for. So we're not done yet. We've got a couple more adjustments that we're going to make. The next one that we're doing is we added a levels adjustment layer, and I'll turn this one off and on. And you can see that basically what it did was it added some contrast to the image. It kind of added a little bit more kind of a saturation to the colors. Now, this is something that you don't have to do. I mean, you could totally just like leave it like this if that's your jam and that looks good. Cool, call it a day at this point. But as artists, we make decisions, and as an artist, I felt like I wanted to add more contrast to this image, so I did that by adding a levels adjustment layer. So to do that, you can go to your adjustments here. There's one called levels, and I just added that as an adjustment layer. Now, what I like to do often when I add these levels adjustment layers is to click this auto button, and we'll see if it does it this time. Yeah, so this is how I ended up getting that contrasty look. And if you hit auto, it's kind of cool because it will actually make this kind of a contrasty adjustment on a lot of portraits. Like, give this a try and you'll be really, really surprised. But what ended up happening was when I did that auto adjustment for the levels, it kind of messes with the skin, and I wasn't too crazy about that. So what I ended up doing, we'll delete that, go back to my original levels layer. So you'll notice again that there's a layer mask on this levels adjustment. And if I hit Alt and click, once again, it's that same mask from earlier. We masked out just the skin so that the contrast is only being applied to her hair, her clothing, and the background. And so how do you do this? So let's actually create this from scratch here. We'll go back to our levels adjustment. We'll click auto. Okay, it applied it to the entire image. What you could do is, since you've already made this layer mask before that basically just excludes her skin and her shirt, you could just use it again. You don't have to, create it again. You don't have to go and brush over those same areas. If you hold down Alt and you click on that original layer mask and you drag it up to this, you'll see it'll say replace layer mask. You could hit yes, and boom, just like that. You are basically copying the layer mask that you created earlier and applying it to this levels adjustment. So if you know that you're going to make multiple adjustments and you don't want to affect the skin tone, that's as easy as it gets, right? Just drag, hold down Alt, and drag it up to this one. All right, so let's delete that. So this is where we are at this point. We'll do before and after once again. So we pretty much have the look like 99.9% of the way there. The last thing that I did was I did some adjustments to the eyes. And, again, this is not something that you necessarily have to do, but I did it for this portrait. So I'll turn these things off one by one. So the first thing that I did was, it's fall, it's cold outside. You'll see that in the video. And if you look at the comments, actually, it's pretty funny. You'll see all these people like, oh, you're gushing over your lens, but your model was freezing. Yeah, she was okay. All right. She had a warm jacket. Noel's a trooper. She made it happen. So, but it's cold outside and everyone has these kind of red spots, these red veins in their eyes. So I created a blank layer, and just like I did with the skin retouching, I basically just went with my spot healing brush, or actually the healing brush tool, and just went over the veins. I sampled the white area and just brushed over them. So you'll see, we'll zoom in a little bit closer. So here's before and after, nothing crazy. Again, on this one, before and after, got rid of like a hair that was coming down there as well. So relatively simple, really easy to be able to do that. Blank layer, again, sampling all layers and just kind of selecting and getting rid of that. The other thing that I did, which I'll click on this layer mask, you can see that on the white part of the eyes, let's see. Yeah, so on this white area, I basically just added a hue saturation layer. You can't see it too much, but on my screen I could see it. I basically just kind of changed the hue of this area so that it looks more white, because there was it wasn't as white as I would like it. And so just kind of added a hue saturation layer. You could see it here, and basically just went to the reds, which the reds is obviously where the eye vein color was coming from, and I took the saturation and dropped it to -27. That basically just desaturates the red parts in the eye, just to give it a more white, even look there. So we did that. And then the last thing that we did, let's go and back out here. So we have that same levels adjustment layer that was added here. And yeah, so actually, hold on. No, that's wrong. Sorry. See, that's why you got to look at these things. So those actually are the two layers here. So we had the eye veins, and we basically just reduced the saturation of the reds. And actually, that's our entire retouch from start to finish there. So that took us from this look to this look. Now, super easy. That was using Photoshop and Exposure X2. But you might be watching this and saying, well, Miguel, I don't have Exposure X2 and I can't afford it, whatever your excuses are. We all got excuses. Exposure X2, by the way, is a really awesome program. Definitely highly recommend that for your color grading for your portraits. But if you don't want to use Exposure X2, it's okay. I'm going to show you in Capture One. So if you have Capture One, which is my raw program that I'm using here to retouch portraits, you could actually use a preset that is included within Capture One to get something similar. I mean, it's not the same, but if you go into your exposure panel, go down to Styles and Presets. Now, if you don't see Styles and Presets here, if you right-click in this dark area here and go to Add Tool, you'll see Styles and Presets here as an option. So you're going to pick Styles and Presets, and if you go to Spring, check that out. So this is Spring, or SPR-02, and you could see that it adds a pretty cool look. I mean, that's almost fallish. It's a pretty easy one-click type of solution to be able to get this fall look. But you will see it does look quite a bit different if I shift back and forth between that and what we got in Photoshop. Personally, I like the look of the photo that we got in Photoshop much better. But if you don't have exposure, you could definitely achieve this look just using one of the presets within Capture One. And of course, you could also, alternatively, if you don't have Capture One and all you have is Photoshop, you could also get a similar look. It's going to take a little bit of work, but you can use the color balance tool and the selective color tool. And this is probably going to be a tutorial for another day, because each of these tools is oh man, it's a lot of work. But you could totally selectively color different areas of the image using these adjustments, adding a mask, and then just brushing in and brushing away different areas of your image to get a similar look. But I'm sure you guys would agree that it's so much easier to just open up a program like Exposure X and just click on the preset, mask out the areas that you don't want to affect, and move on with life. We don't, as photographers, unless you charged extra for the retouch, we don't get paid for retouching our photos. We don't get paid for spending extra time retouching portraits. For me, if at all possible, I want to spend as little time as possible working on these images. So I'll go into Photoshop, and this image probably in total took me about 20 to 25 minutes. And if I was in a rush to do it, I probably could have done it in about 10 to 15 minutes. But this was something that was going into a video tutorial, so I wanted to spend a little bit more time just kind of finessing it and making it look cool. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, make sure that you click that thumbs up button. As well, if you're watching this and you are not currently subscribed to my channel, please, I would ask you subscribe to the channel. It's free. It's great. You'll get notified every time a new video posts up. I'll be doing videos showing you how I shoot images. I'll be doing some more retouching videos in the future. We'll be doing some more giveaways, like the quick reminder, like the giveaway for the Sony a6500 that we're doing right now. So there's a lot of new content coming up, at least one video every week. Hopefully over the next few months, I'll be able to actually upload even more. We'll be talking about photography, retouching, business. We'll sprinkle in some vlogs. We'll do some tech and gear reviews. So there's going to be a lot happening on the channel. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you did as well, if you have any questions at all about any of this process, leave it in the comment section below. And perhaps in the next video, I'll try to answer those questions. And then also let me know, what do you guys want to see in terms of retouching? What other, tips and techniques do you want to learn? I think I'll be doing a dodge and burn video. So if you want to see that, let me know in the comment section. But I will do some other videos here in the future. So thanks again for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it and have a fantastic day.